Well, today we're talking about Philmont footwear. What gear do you need to take to Philmont, and how do you go about figuring out what's the best option for you? And you're watching Andy Parrish Outdoors. Well, hey everybody, Andy here, and thanks for joining me today. And today we're talking about Philmont footwear. Let's go through that discussion, talk about what you need, talk a little bit about how to go through that process, and if you wait to the very end, share some tips and tricks just to make your experience that much better. If you haven't already seen, I've got videos posted. I'll link up above for Philmont water. Some suggestions how to go with a lighter, better water kit than some of the old traditional ideas. And I also tackled recently the idea of Philmont seating. Does it make sense to bring a chair, a sit pad, and the like? I'll link that up above too. Go check those out. Again, this series of videos that I'm putting out there are really just meant to provide a lot of information to parents and scouts that are preparing to go to Philmont potentially for the very first time, and make some sense of how do I go about preparing my scout or myself for an awesome experience out at the Philmont Scout Ranch. So hopefully this is useful and you can, gain some information, gain some knowledge of what it's like and how to put together a better kit so that you have a better experience. So if you're new to the channel is all about, backpacking, outdoor adventures, gear, tips and tricks, you name it. My goal is to, again, make it easier for people that are getting into this field to make better decisions, have more information, make educated decisions with their, backpacking needs and choices as they enter into the backcountry. So if any of those things interest you, consider subscribing, and then you'll be alerted every time I post new content, and there is a lot of new content coming. So sit back and relax, and let's dive in to today's Philmont footwear discussion. All right, so where do we even begin this discussion? Well, I think a great place to start is to talk a little bit about the environment that is the Philmont Scout Ranch. We're in the American Southwest. We've got a very low humidity environment. You will see some, rain from time to time during the monsoon season. It can be prolonged rainy times. You're going to see, mountainous environments. So we're going to see big climbs, big descents. If you head into the northern section, you're going to see some grasslands of the Vale. You're going to see some off-trail stuff potentially. You're going to go through some sections where you've got established roads or very well-established trails. You could have some very steep inclines. You may have some loose rock, potentially some very rocky stretches of trail that you're going to have to navigate, some larger boulders that are in the middle of large sections of trail. All of these are different factors. You're going to have a heavier pack. You're going to have altitude to deal with. You may have some physical fitness concerns in your crew. You've got a trek with anywhere from 40 plus miles to well over 100 miles that you have to deal with. So lots of different things that go into the factors of choosing footwear and what makes the most sense for you. But ultimately, we have to make sure that our footwear fits those needs and handles those challenges to the best of their abilities, and it fits us well. Now that we've talked a little bit about the environment, let's look at what Philmont puts out as far as recommendations and guidance about our gear, specifically the footwear. Now, I've got up here on the screen, on my screen, 3 different publications that they've put out for this year. I've got the Guidebook to Adventure, the Equipment Lists, and the Shakedown Guide. All 3 of those publications specifically mention footwear and gear more generally. So what do they recommend? Well, it's pretty clear if you read through all of those that Philmont has a strong recommendation to hiking boots, specifically waterproof hiking boots, and then a camp shoe, something like a pair of sneakers. That's pretty clear cut. Now, they do mention, trail runners, I think at one point, those are okay. We just we recommend the hiking boots. Well, that's really what I wanted to get into today, is to talk a little bit about what are the different options that are available, why Philmont may lean one direction, and what are the other ones that are out there. Looking at the backpacker community, hundreds of thousands of miles of experience that's out there, what's the discussion going on regarding footwear? So let's dive into that a little bit now. So for the Philmont Scout Ranch, there's really 4 different categories of footwear that you want to consider for your trek. And chances are you're going to have a combination of probably at least 2 of those that you're going to take with you out to Philmont. The first one is hiking boots. This is kind of the traditional. This is what Philmont, clearly recommends in their publications of what they push people towards. And there's a few different reasons why that makes a ton of sense. The first is going to be the, track record. Hiking boots have been used for decades. There's lots of experience with them. They've been used on the ranch forever. So they've got a ton of experience, people having successful treks in a good pair of hiking boots. And a second reason why I think they recommend this is the additional ankle support that typically comes from, high top hiking boots. You're going to have, more support. And at Philmont, which is a kind of a unique situation, that makes a lot of sense. So at Philmont, you have a lot of kids and adults that are carrying really heavy packs at times, maybe that they're not used to carrying. You're at altitude, which can do kind of funny things to your equilibrium at times. And you also have the situation where you may have some physical fitness issues, and you're having really strenuous hikes as well. So by the time you get to the end of a day where you've done, 8-10 miles, you're pretty fatigued. A misstep can happen. So having a little bit of ankle support, I think, is really what Philmont is most comfortable pushing people towards. Now, they also specifically talk about getting boots that are waterproof, and I think the reason being is, they do get rain there from time to time, and if you're there during the rainy season, they can get rain quite a bit. And hiking boots that are waterproof tend to do the best job of keeping your feet dry in those wet environments. They're usually pretty good at going through the rain, going through small streams without getting your feet wet. So makes a lot of sense. And the other thing that I'd throw in is they're extremely durable. Hiking boots are of the different categories the most durable. You can typically get the most mileage out of them because they've got thick, rigid soles that are made for that environment. So it's not uncommon that for a good pair of hiking boots to see people get 5 to maybe as many as 800 miles out of a pair of boots before they kind of crap out on them. So there's a lot of good reasons to look at that. Now, what are the reasons that maybe that's not the best idea for you? Well, the biggest one in the backpacking community is weight. They're the heaviest, the biggest, burliest thing that you can put on your feet. So, it's not uncommon that a good pair of boots is going to be 2 to 3 pounds of weight for the pair of boots. That's quite a bit. And if you think about the old adage of, a pound on the foot is worth 5 pounds on your back, having 3 pounds on your feet, that adds up. At the end of a long day, climbs, descents, you've got weight on your back and you're lifting, 3-pound boots through that terrain. It wears you out. So people inherently look for lighter weight options. And I'd even recommend, if you're looking at the boot category heavily, consider weight. Comfort is a big deal, the biggest deal, but weight should also be a factor as well. Now, the other one that I'll mention too as a con for the boots is that rigidity. You talk about the pros being the ankle support. Well, one of the drawbacks is just how rigid and inflexible some of the boots are. So when you've got, climbing through a boulder field or kind of uneven terrain, the boots may provide you that extra stability, but they also limit your range of motion. So being able to be as agile as you need to be to navigate that field can actually be a detriment as well. So just something to think about as you navigate through this decision-making process. Now, the second category is just going to be hiking shoes. Okay, these are, kind of the scaled down cousin of the hiking boots. In a lot of cases, manufacturers are actually making the exact same, sole setup that they make for their high top boots, and they're just making it in a low cut option. So you get a lot of the durability. You can even get some waterproof, hiking shoes. So it provides you a lot of the toughness, the durability, and the protection that the boots give you hiking in rocky, uneven terrain, but now allows you greater flexibility so that you can have a little bit more comfort on trail. They're typically lighter weight than what you're going to find in the hiking boots. Sometimes the cost is a little bit less than what you find in the hiking boot, but you get all the cushion, all the comfort, and a little better, agility to handle the rocky terrains and the uneven environment that you're going to see when you head to Philmont. So hiking shoes, it's not uncommon that you're going to see people get, 400, 500 miles out of a good pair of hiking shoes. So maybe a little bit less than they get with the boots, but a lot of the same great characteristics in a smaller, lighter weight package that, isn't going to quite tire you out as much as the hiking boot would at the end of the day. Now, some drawbacks, obviously, you don't have the extra ankle support that you're getting from the boots. Again, with that too, you're not going to get quite as great of water protection. If you get waterproof hiking shoes, rainy environments, you're still going to get water that's hitting you in the legs that's able to get down. Or if you're doing creek crossings, it's much, much easier for water to get up and over the side of your hiking shoes. So you do have some drawbacks to considering the hiking shoes. Now, the third category is kind of a newer category. Probably over the last 10 years, we've really seen an explosion of running shoes that are specifically designed for the trail. So your trail runners are now a very common product that you're going to see in a lot of outdoor outfitting stores, and for good reason. They've kind of gone lighter weight and with a more breathable option. So, we've talked a little bit about boots being, great. You can look at options that are waterproof, and Philmont even recommends that. But in the backpacking community, you're seeing a growing trend where people are looking at hiking shoes, or now even trail runners, and specifically avoiding ones that are waterproof. And the reason being, the newer shoes, the new trail runners that are out there, and even some of the hiking shoes that are not waterproof, are designed to hold very little water. So their thought is, hey, I'm going to be trudging through the stream. I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to worry about my feet getting wet. I'm just going to go right through. My feet are going to get wet, but the materials are not going to absorb the water. They're not going to hold the water, and I'm going to dry out fast. So I might run through that stream, or I might hit that, rainstorm and my feet get wet, but they dry amazingly fast. And that's very different from the hiking boots that we talked about. Anything that is waterproof, typically it's going to protect you on the outside from water getting in. But if water does happen to get in, they take forever to dry out. So a long, prolonged, rainstorm, you may end up having water that gets in down through your ankle and soaks the inside. Or, the other thing that's fairly common is you're hiking through the stream and you think, oh, I can make this. And all of a sudden you have a little bit of a slip, and maybe water gets over the top of your boot, and now they're soaked. and they're going to be soaked for a while, because if you have like Gore-Tex boots, it takes forever for the insides of those to dry out on trail. It's just the way that it works. Now, the other factor, though, that I think applies to Philmont is with the waterproof boots, you get the issue of your feet sweating. So it's a hot environment. It's not uncommon that you're going to be hiking in at 75, 80, 85 degrees in the sun in the middle of the day, especially in lower elevations, and your feet can sweat. So the waterproof boots typically don't breathe as well. So you get kind of, hiking in your own sweaty socks can lead to blisters and other issues. So the newer kind of thinking has been, well, let's look at hiking shoes and trail runners that are not waterproof, with the thought that, okay, I'm going to get wet from time to time, but in an environment like Philmont where it's low humidity and everything's kind of dries out real quickly, and all of their material from Philmont talks about this, hiking shoes and trail runners might make some sense, because, hey, let them get wet, but your stuff is going to dry out pretty quickly. That's why you have, a backup pair of socks when you get to camp. You put your shoes out, you let them dry out, even during breaks. But the hiking shoes, well, let's specifically talk about the trail runners, that third category. Why they're so popular is, they're the lightest weight, they're the most breathable, and they're the most comfortable. They have the most flexibility. You have a better feel for the trail underneath you. They're designed to be that way. So there's a lot of pluses. Now, there's some negatives to them as well, too. They're not nearly as durable. So, expecting to get 500 miles out of a pair of trail runners is a rarity. If you get 250 miles to 400 miles out of a good pair of trail runners, you've done pretty well. The cushioning is just made so lightweight, but over time it compresses, and then you just don't have kind of the shock absorption that you get out of the more durable materials that they use in either the hiking shoes or the hiking boots. So you can go lighter weight, you can go breathable, but you give up some of the durability. Now let's talk about the fourth category. And you may be scratching your head a little bit thinking, wait, isn't that all that I really want to consider? Trail runners, hiking shoes, boots, what else is there? Well, sandals. And now I'm not specifically talking about sandals for hiking, but this is more of a discussion when you get into talking about camp shoes. So sandals are a great option for some, for a great breathable option at the end of the day to let your feet air out, dry out. Again, we want to minimize our feet getting wet. Leads to blisters and other issues. So at the end of the day, taking your shoes off, your boots off, and putting on a pair of sandals to just let them breathe and dry out can be a great option. Now, one of the best reasons for them is not only the breathability, but just how lightweight some of them are. These are going to be typically well under a pound. So the weight penalty for carrying a pair of sandals is going to be minimal. Okay. So having a pair of sandals you can throw in there at the end of the day, you're sitting in your camp chair, or, just in your tent, letting your feet air out. If you got to get up and go use the restroom, whatever, throwing a pair of sandals on, super fast, super easy, convenient. I used them. I loved them. And there's lots of different options that are available out on the marketplace today. You can use everything from the classic Crocs. You'll see those quite a bit around Philmont. You'll see things like the Zero shoes, like the Zero Trail sandals. You'll see things like the Adidas slides, or like what I took, which was just kind of the dollar store cheap flip-flops, because I just wanted something to protect my feet from the ground, but I wasn't doing any other activity other than sitting by the campfire, eating dinner, at the end of the day. That was what worked great for me, and they were 5 ounces, so the weight penalty was very minimal, and that was my second piece of footwear that I took along for letting my feet just air out and dry out at camp. Well, so if you're finding this information valuable so far, please go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. It really does help the channel. It helps other people find this video that are looking for this kind of information. It just makes it more readily available. So if you found some help, some usefulness, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Thanks so much. So now that we've gone through the 4 different categories, let's talk a little bit about how they might make sense to work together. Okay. Philmont, for example, in their guidance, they talk a lot about the hiking boots, the waterproof options being their kind of recommended thing for hiking on trail. You know, they understand heavy packs, all of that sort of thing. So let's choose the hiking boots and the waterproof variety. But when you get to camp, they recommend having a pair of sneakers, you know, just tennis shoes, something that you can put on closed-toed. And the reason their suggestions, you know, are for this combination is, you know, they specifically mention there's a lot of programming. Well, not all the programming that's out there at Philmont are you going to want to do in a big kind of rigid set of hiking boots. You know, if you're doing mountain biking, you know, picture doing that in rigid, you know, high top hiking boots. You're not going to get the range of motion and the flexibility that maybe you need to do that. If you're doing rock climbing, you can do it in boots, but you're going to have a much easier experience doing those in sneakers, tennis shoes. So I think, you know, they want you to have another option that you can air out your feet at the end of the day. And, you know, breathable sneakers, non-waterproof, can make a lot of sense for that. But they probably wouldn't recommend the combination of having hiking boots and then sandals, because again, then you have the issue of what about all the programming? What about all the activities? I can't really do that in sandals, and I really don't want to do that in hiking boots. So they recommend bringing a pair of sneakers. And I think that makes the most sense. So if you're in the camp that's looking at bringing a hiking boot, I would strongly encourage you to bring a second pair of footwear that's going to be your sneakers, your tennis shoes, that option. I think those paired together makes the most sense. Now, some people also consider bringing a pair of lighter weight sandals. So a third option. I think now you're getting into the point where just the weight of all of that is a lot, and you want to minimize as much excess weight as you possibly can. And the boots and the sneakers are by far the heaviest option. Those are the 2 heaviest categories. So, you know, having a pair of boots and then having to bring a pair of sneakers anyway, you're bringing a lot of extra weight. I probably wouldn't consider bringing a pair of sandals on top of that. Just go with the 2. But I think there are some other options that might be lighter weight that still meet all the needs that you're looking for. And now, if you are considering looking at the other options, going with a hiking shoe or with a trail runner, it opens up some other combinations to you. So for example, if you're looking at primarily having your hiking shoe be your main piece of footwear for on trail, then when you get into camp and you're looking for, you know, let my feet air out from the hiking shoe or the trail runners, then I think, you know, pairing it with a pair of sandals or slides or Crocs makes a lot of sense, because they're lighter weight, and they're the best option at airing your feet out. So the hiking shoe and the trail runners are now flexible enough, light enough, another pair of sneakers, so to speak, to do all of your programming with. So your hiking shoe or your trail runners become not only your primary piece of footwear for on trail, it also becomes your footwear for all of your programming. So if you're mountain biking or climbing or, you know, doing those kind of things, using the same shoe you hiked on trail, there's no problem using that exact same piece of footwear. And then when you get back to camp and you're sitting by, you know, the fire or cooking dinner or whatever, having a pair of slides or sandals or flip-flops even makes a ton of sense, and it can help you save even more weight. So the question's going to be, you know, does it make sense for you to maybe make the transition from a hiking boot to something like a hiking shoe or a trail runner? Now, you might get a little bit of pushback from your crew leadership, maybe even from your troop, from the adults, because, traditionally Philmont has really pushed the hiking boot as, the main option. Now, they do specifically mention though that hiking shoes, trail hikers, that sort of thing, those are completely fine. They just would kind of prefer you go the other direction. And I think I know what they're looking to limit liability and injury as best that they possibly can. And they have the most experience with that. The trend with the hiking shoe and the trail runners are, really kind of a newer explosion. But if you look at surveys for people that are doing long distance hiking, specifically the Appalachian Trail, the Pacific Coast Trail, the Continental Divide Trail, these things, people that interview folks that have done that, there's been an overwhelming majority that have switched from hiking boots into something like hiking shoes or trail runners even, because they like the lighter weight, breathable option. It's more comfortable. It just provides a better experience on trail. Now, that's something that you're going to have to weigh for yourself. I'm never going to say go away from hiking boots. I'm never going to push you towards one. Ultimately, this has to fit for you or your scout what makes the most sense. So, just be aware that these options are out there. I would really strongly encourage, if you're looking at a hiking shoe or a trail runner, that you work extra diligently to get your pack weight down. My target for my scouts is we want to get it at 20 pounds. If we want to have your base weight before, crew gear and food and water at 20 pounds. If you can get to 20 pounds and under, I think that opens the option that, having lighter weight shoes, you don't necessarily need maybe as much of the support with the boots, and having to then lug the heavier boots and having shoes as your backup. You can now go with shoes as your main hiking footwear, and then go with sandals as your, camp shoe. Okay, so we've gone through those 4 different categories and talked a little bit about how to make combinations, boots with shoes and then shoes with sandals as great ways to cut down on weight and have footwear that meets your needs. Let's talk a little bit about the next question, which is kind of a challenging one, is how do you go about the process of picking what works for you? Okay, there's all these different options and choices, and I didn't even go into specific shoes in those different categories. We're just talking generally. But now how do you pick and choose? Well, the first thing I'd say is go try things on. Okay, I know we're kind of in this environment where it makes sense to let me order something and it'll be shipped to me and then I can try it on. I really encourage you to go find an outfitter, an REI, something like that, where you can go try these shoes on, walk around, make sure that they fit, that they're comfortable. Try on multiple different varieties. Don't just try the first one and you're like, this is great. I've got a son that was that approach. Like the first ones he tried on. Okay, good, Dad, I'm done. No, I want you to try on 3 or 4 or 5 different pair. I want you to get a feel for it. Let's see what, works best, what you're most comfortable with, and then go from there. And I want you to try on boots. I want you to try on hiking shoes. I want you to try on some trail runners. Have them fit and sized properly and try them out. The second thing I would do is focus in on whatever you do pick, spending some time breaking them in. Okay. Now that may not be as pertinent if you're getting something like trail runners. Typically there's almost no break-in time for some of those. I typically would say, go get 5 or 10 miles in them and you're probably going to feel pretty good about it. You get into more of the hiking boots, you may need to get 50 miles in or more with a pack, getting a feel for those. It's a different feel than, what shoes you normally wear. So you want to have some experience, knowledge of just what that's like. So break them in, take the time, do it right. You don't want to be breaking shoes in or taking shoes to Philmont that aren't broken in properly. It's a big deal. Now, with that in mind, you've gone through the breaking in period. You also want to go through kind of a testing, a trial run, which is what shakedown hikes are really meant to be for our gear. We're going to go out, mimic what Philmont's going to be like, and we're going to be carrying our pack, and we're going to have all the gear that we're going to be taking, and then we can evaluate, well, what worked and what didn't work, and what do I want to drop out of my pack? Well, your boots, your shoes, whatever you're taking to Philmont should be taken on those hikes so that you can really see in real world environments, if I'm carrying a 30-pound pack, how does it feel, those shoes on my feet at the end of, doing 6, 7, 8, 10 miles. It's important. So take the time, test them out, make sure that they work for you. I mean, it might only be in those conditions of doing that for a few days in a row where you start to notice, holy cow, these things give me hot spots. I'm getting blisters. I'm sweating like crazy in them. All the issues that may come up, you want to figure that out before you get to Philmont. So after you've broken them in, really give them a trial run, test them in real world conditions so you know whether they work or whether they don't. And then you get into that fourth thing, which is, okay, make the adjustments that are needed. If they're not working for you, change it. That's one reason that I recommend stores like REI that have a return policy. You can take shoes for a year and wear them up to that length and return them. So they're great for, taking a Scout to an REI, getting them fitted, try on different varieties. You settle on the one that you want, you purchase it, you take them on shakedown hikes. They might go on 2 or 3 different shakedown hikes. Hopefully they figure out after the first or second one that it's not working. Maybe the sizing isn't right. Something's not working for you. You take it back and you either get a resizing of that shoe or you replace it. Okay. So someone, for example, might try a high top, the full length boots, not like them, and switch to hiking shoes, something like that. Completely possible. It may be even go the other way. I try the hiking shoes over a period of time. I just don't like them. I want to go into boots. So you make that switch. So after you've, done that trial run, if there's any adjustments that need to be made, make them. Go change them out. Stores like that will allow you to return them and just either swap them or buy something different and get your money back. So that's hugely valuable when looking at this kind of environment of how do I test them out and figure out that they really work if I can't then turn around and return them. I just don't want to buy 4 pairs of shoes and be stuck with them. So consider that. Let's talk about a few tips and tricks that I would give to parents and scouts that have maybe never gone through this process of picking out what makes the most sense for them. The first tip that I'll give you is pick your socks of what you're going to be taking. Okay, I typically recommend that scouts get wool socks, something like Darn Tough. They have a great warranty. If you can wear a hole in them, they'll replace them. They're made out of wool, so they're great moisture wicking. They resist odor a lot longer than just about any other material that's out there. So you can go days and days on trail with these socks and they won't smell so bad. So something like that, pick your socks first and then take those socks to the store when you're trying on your shoes. You want to know exactly how much room you have, what they're going to feel like laced up with the actual socks that you're going to be wearing on trail. Do it. It really makes a difference in helping fit your shoes properly. So pick your socks, what you're going to use, and then take those to the store. Now, the second tip that I'm going to give too, hopefully the people at the store will also give you this information too, is if you do a lot of hiking, one thing that you'll realize is after spending multiple days on trail, your feet kind of start to change shape a little bit. So in some cases, they'll swell a little bit. And in some cases, they may flatten out. Okay, so having enough room, specifically in the toe box of your shoe, makes a ton of difference in the long run. So you want to typically, what the general rule is size up your shoes. So whatever is the nice, snug, comfortable fit, maybe the normal size that you wear for shoes, is you may go up a half a size. Okay. And then depending on the feel of with the socks that you're wearing, it may even go up a full size. So for example, me, it's kind of in between. In some manufacturers, I'm a full size larger in my my trail runners and my boots. In some manufacturers, I'm about half a size larger. But you want to have that extra space, not only for the multiple days on trail where your foot kind of swells or flattens out, you may have that change. But the other big thing is, especially being out west in a mountainous environment, descents. Okay, when you make that big climb and then you're going down the other side, hiking downhill, if you're in shoes that are snug or just maybe the normal fit that what you have, what you'll find is your toes will slam into the front of the boot on your descents. And you do that for long enough, and some people will have, their toenails get black from the bruising that takes place from that constant pounding. So you want to have an extra space in the front from the toe to the front of the shoe so that when you're hiking downhill, you're not slamming your toes into the front of your shoe repeatedly, bruising. I mean, that can be an extremely painful addition to a hiking trip. Okay, if you've got any questions, anything we've covered today, go ahead and leave those in the comments down below. And if you've gone to Philmont before, why don't you go ahead and post what you took and whether it worked or whether it didn't with regards to your Philmont footwear. I'd be really curious just to see with the community out there, all the different ideas, all the different possibilities. It'll just help all the new parents, all the new scouts be that much better informed. Also, I'm going to leave specific links down below for more specific choices. So we've kind of talked generally about, different categories of shoes, but now I'm going to go through some of the specific boots, some of the specific hiking shoes and trail runners that either get outstanding reviews or that I have personal experience with that I'm going to share with you so that you can maybe start to narrow down that list as you head to the store to see, which ones do you want to try on when you get there. All right, well, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, this is a tough topic. There's so many different choices. You really just have to figure out what's the best option for you. So thanks again. And until next time, be well.